lot of times peers have the same level of connection, interest in things. So that makes a lot of sense to use children their own age. And there are lots of awesome kids out there who are really willing to be good friends to children with some challenges. So, all right. Thank you all for sharing and listening. Okay, so I have just listed just some. This is certainly not all, but some of the biggest communication challenges in autism spectrum disorder. Having difficulty seeing another's perspective taking, give no or minimal eye contact during an interaction, may have difficulty attending to auditory messages, may not know or understand conversational rules, desires social interaction but has difficulty initiating and maintaining friendship. This is really something for a lot of our older adolescent and teen individuals with autism. Miss nonverbal cues of others and recognizing emotions. So this, like I said, not the be-all end-all of list, but certainly encompasses a lot of the major challenges that we hear from parents and educators in terms of what they're facing with their children or students with autism spectrum disorder. So I like this diagram. I like to use some visuals. I think they're kind of easier to kind of understand. But this visual kind of gets at this triad of autism. These kind of three different points that we kind of see at to some extent in most individuals with autism spectrum. So we see communication, right, having difficulty initiating or sustaining conversation, unusual or repetitive language, does not play make-believe or pretend, delayed or impoverished language development. So here's our communication, and then we have activities and interests, maybe really rigid, like if you change something, that might not be a good thing. Really needs routine. Fascination with parts of objects. Preoccupation with narrow interests. Unusual or repetitive gestures or actions. So we have some of those self-esteem behaviors that sometimes we see. And then at the top we have challenges in social interaction. So sometimes appears unresponsive or kind of aloof, right? Just kind of zoned out, doesn't want to interact with anyone. Absent unusual eye contact, gestures, and expressions. Does not make friends with peers. Does not spontaneously share interests or enjoyment. So these are a lot of the things that we might see in all these different areas of the triangle. And then in the middle we have may be skilled in some non-social domains.
We've got you, Mike. It's hard to hear the best.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're fine.
Testing. Hello. Okay. Yay! Okay. I might sing like if I was on American Idol. The voice, I'll spin your chairs around. So, and then of course in the center we have, and we know that lots of individuals on the spectrum are highly skilled in domains that are not necessarily social, right? And math and engineering and art and music, right? So we cannot forget about those really awesome strengths and how they enrich our community so greatly. And just another way to look at autism, and I like to kind of look at things not one-dimensional. I like to look at it in different ways. This was a visual I thought made sense. It's called the ASD iceberg. So on the top we see maybe a lot of the surface behaviors, and this is what most people see, right? When we think about autism, if you ask people who were not around individuals with autism spectrum, who did not work with autism spectrum, this is mostly what they would see are those surface behaviors, but really don't understand the why, right? So where those challenges are in interaction, communication, and flexible thinking. And of course, sensory. I know a lot of people struggle with sensory issues and challenges, and that is something that most people who do not have direct experience with would understand if they haven't encountered that. I just want to take a moment here because in talking about that triad, we're really going to focus mostly on the communication piece of that triad. But I wanted to take a moment to talk about echolalia a little bit, because this is something that I have often asked as a speech pathologist. My child just repeats everything I say and doesn't seem to have any meaning, and how do I stop that? And so just in very simple terms, echolalia is the precise repetition or echoing of words and sounds. So echolalia can be words, it can also be sounds that are heard or made. And it's often really described as a stereotype of autism. And I think, again, when people who don't have direct interaction think about autism, they often think of a child repeats things or scripts and things like that. But it really does appear to be a normal part of communication development in children with autism spectrum disorder. So, and it can be also a great starting point for play or therapy because echolalia, can be used to engage and to start a back and forth communication. A lot of times when I have kids that make I say and guess what? All of a sudden, like you get that reaction. It's like, what? Like you did that? Yeah, right. And so it doesn't have to be all the time that we're going for this back and forth conversation. Of course, that's what we want, right? That's the end point we want. But a lot of times it starts off at just I do it, you do it. I do it, you do it. Wow, that's pretty cool, right? We can have an interaction just doing that. But also it's important to keep in mind that echolalia a lot of times is functional, right? And sometimes we have to look at the patterns a little bit more closely. And sometimes things that sound quite random, as just a repetition, often have meaning. Because maybe your child or the individual is using that phrase every time they want something specific, or they want to go somewhere, or they need something, right? So sometimes, it's worth it just to take that extra moment and think, okay, well, wait, maybe, the other day he said the same thing. And what did he want? He wanted, milk or something like that. Okay, well, maybe now that's his way of saying that to me, right? So a lot of times you can find patterns in echolalia that are functional and can be a starting point for that communication. And it can also be non-functional, and this is something where we kind of have to be a little bit of a detective here. Sometimes, just as a part of the nature of autism spectrum disorder, it can just be that they're just simply repeating something, and it doesn't have much function. Again, though, even for me, I know when I'm working with a child, if they repeat something, oftentimes I'll try to engage it and see if it goes somewhere, and if not, I'll just kind of move on. If I find that it's not serving much of a function for the child.